Welcome everyone to another episode of AWS She Builds Tech Skills. I'm your host, Mai, and we have our lovely co-host here who has just come back from Las Vegas. What happened over in Vegas, May?
Hello, everyone, and thanks, Mai. And thank you, everyone, for joining on our Sheebles Tech Skills. What happened in Vegas stays in Vegas. I'm just kidding. If anyone missed what happened in last month in reInvent at AWS, we had one of the largest conference happened at Las Vegas. It lasted for 5 days, and I had the privilege to actually go in and see in person what happened at reInvent. So it was one of the largest conference I've ever been to. We went there last year. Hopefully we can go again next year. But it was massive. If I can summarize this in one words, it's mind blowing and it's massive. That's 2 words. But it was lots of news announcement to reInvent. Somebody said, "Did you go to the Sphere?" No, I didn't. I can only grasp. So this is the Sphere. Which is a new things I've seen on the YouTube. If you haven't seen what the Sphere at the Las Vegas, you should go and watch on the YouTube. And it's crazy. It's beautiful. I didn't get a chance to go and see a Sphere, but I got the glimpse when I was walking switching from station from one place to another, and I crossed the road and I saw a massive Spheres. That was actually, pretty cool to see a Spheres, but I haven't actually got a chance to go inside.
Oh, that's a bummer. And what was your favorite service launch or feature release from reInvent this year, May?
Look, it's so many of them. Like everybody was saying, I was totally blown away with the new announcement on the Amazon queue. So I'm gonna drop a link in the chat if you haven't seen some of the key announcement on the AWS reInvent 2023. Have a look through the key announcement. I want to go through and watch all the keynotes because I missed some of the keynotes. As you can imagine, there's a lot going on. So Amazon Q is a new type of generative AI assistant that's designed for enterprise and businesses. So I find that's like it's going to be a really game changer for a lot of our customers, and one of my favorites announcements, I believe. What about yourself, Mai?
Yeah, definitely Q was quite interesting. And for me, I'm very biased with containers. So, I love the guard duty ECS runtime monitoring. So now you can
Yes.
get some runtime threat detection with ECS on EC2 and AWS Fargate, which is amazing. So if you want to toughen up your security posture, definitely look at ECS runtime monitoring with guard duty. So that was
Yeah.
my favorite announcement, being super biased.
No, that's cool. No, that's really cool. It's a lot of new things happening at the container space as well. So it's great to see all of these like security enhancement, new features on the container space. That's super great. I want to see if who is watching the stream. Has anyone seen any new announcement that they like? Share with us on the chat as well. Speaking of reInvent we also do some of the local reInvent recap. Tell us a little bit about what happened in the local, like ANZ. We based out in ANZ, Australia, New Zealand. What happens in ANZ for the reInvent?
Yes, reInvent recap. So we had reInvent recap events where we talked about the latest service releases and feature updates, but we can only take a few of them because there were hundreds of them, right? And we
Yeah.
fit it into a span of 2 or 3 hours. We had awesome solutions architects and technical account managers come in and talk about what's new. And we also had in Brisbane, I don't know if it applies to other cities, but we had a really cool mugshot feature, which is you can upload your favorite photo. You can use Stable Diffusion to make some updates, modifications, and we printed it out so that it's on like a brand new custom mug. So
That's
Yeah,
cool.
so that was pretty cool. I don't know if that happened in Sydney, do you know?
I'm not sure, but that's really cool. It's kind of like a reinvent souvenir to take home and tried
Yeah,
out generative AI and stable diffusion model as well. So if you haven't tried it out, I think that's a really cool way to learn and also understand more about generative AI model.
absolutely, and a great Christmas gift as well. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. So, on that note, we do have an awesome guest speaker today. So, we're going to bring her on, and her name is Nathalie. So, she is a seasoned professional in business transformation and program management, and she's part of the AWS Enterprise Support team as a AWS Enterprise Support Manager for the mining, energy, and commercial team. So, she'll be talking about the topic of today, earn trust and why it matters. Welcome, Nat.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. May, did you want to ask some cool
Yeah.
questions?
So thank you, Nat, for joining us. And really, like this is the show that we talk about, or we bring in the speakers to chat a little about their career journey, what they do at their day to day. So I'm gonna kick it off with some of the career questions, or like just to understand a little bit more about you. So now tell us what you do. What's your role at AWS, and just briefly explain to the viewers.
Sure. So, as Mai said, I'm an enterprise support manager. I look after the mining, energy, and commercial team of technical account managers. And so we partner with our customers to give them architectural and operational guidance in the context of their application so that they can get the greatest value out of their AWS investment. I love my job.
That's amazing. And I guess my next question is, how did you get into a technical account manager role? Like, what was your experience like?
So I'll give you a brief tour of Nat's career. So I basically started with a diploma of computer programming, and I did an internship and realized that I absolutely hated it. This is 23 years ago, which makes me feel very old to say. But so it gave me the opportunity to work in the tech space, and even though I did really disliked programming, I ended up being a tester in the same organization. That evolved into being a trainer on the software that they were building. That evolved into being in the support team, supporting the customers using the software. That evolved into, being in the operations team and running operations, and this is through multiple organizations. And then leading sort of business transformation programs, and then finally joining AWS as a technical account manager myself, or just about 3 years ago, doing that for a year, and then stepping into the manager role. So worked in IT for 23 years, different roles, but largely related to supporting customers, enabling customers, and helping them transform their business.
Yeah, that's amazing. 23 years. That is such a great journey. I guess like for people who is thinking about, getting into a technical role like yourself, what sort of advice do you have for people to get into a tech career or such as yourself?
Yeah, and I mean, it's an interesting question because I'm not what you call, deeply technical, and I think there's often the perception that you have to be, super technical to work in the tech space, and absolutely, there are many roles around that, but there are also many other roles. And so my advice would be figure out what you're passionate about and what you love doing, and also what your strengths are. And typically, the things that you love are also the things that you're good at. And once you know what those are, explore roles or try to find roles that let you mature that skill set. And you might love project management, you might love training people, you might love working in a support role, you might love being an architect. But figure out what you love, and what you're passionate about, and then don't be afraid to do the roles that you think are not as glamorous, or that everyone doesn't want to pursue, because oftentimes those are the roles that open the door to opportunities. They put you in places where you can network with a lot of people. So find out what you're passionate about, and keep an open mind. Unless you really know your dream job and you're working backwards from the skill set you need for that, just follow the opportunity and be agile and embrace what's given, because there's so much opportunity in the space.
Yeah, I really like the fact that like in the technical role, it doesn't have to be one role. There are so many roles. Like, you can be people manager like yourself, enterprise support manager. You came from technical background. There are so many things that people can do and choose in the tech career. Not specifically have to be coming from a tech background. If you are, that's great. If you're not, it's not a deal breaker. So I think that's a really good advice there.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to try new things.
Yeah.
That's how you learn. Just have a go. Say yes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If anyone who is watching on the live stream, or if you're watching on demand, let us know what you think. If you're trying to get into a career in the technology space, if you have any question for Nat, drop in the chat, and we're going to answer this during our live stream. Mai, what's next?
Yes, so Nat, I believe you have a topic that you'd like to present today about earning trust and why it matters. So over to you, Nat.
Yeah, thank you. And I guess, earning trust might seem out of place related to technology. And so maybe I'll define what earning trust actually means. And that there's an official definition. It's one of the Amazonian leadership principles. It's my second favorite Amazonian LP. And then, to me, earning trust means consistently demonstrating an understanding and empathy to partner with your stakeholders on helping them solve their problems. And so the context of what I'll talk about today is obviously in a professional and business sense, but the principles equally apply, to our personal lives. But your reputation is built on what you consistently do. And so, you want people to be able to know that you have their best interests at heart, you're working with them to achieve what they want to achieve. And consistency is so key in demonstrating that. So in terms of a definition, that's what earning trust means to me. In terms of why does it matter? It matters because we work with humans. And even though in our industry, we have all the amazing innovation, we work with such brilliant people every day, we solve complex technology problems, but it's easy to forget that everything we do, we are still talking to humans and engaging with humans, and we are solving problems for people. And anything that we do in our lives, in terms of our work lives, you have to take people on a journey. And so if you are pitching a new app to an investor, you need to be able to say to them, why does it matter and why should you care? If you are trying to get agreement from a stakeholder to implement a new architecture or a new practice, you need to be able to explain to them why it matters to them. And so, if we focus on the right outcomes, you create trust, and that then makes it easier for you to keep inventing, keep simplifying, and keep delivering real value to your customers and stakeholders. In terms of how you actually earn trust, so the question might be, okay, it matters. How do you earn that trust? And the first thing I would say is really understand the person that you're working with. It could be a customer, it could be a stakeholder, it could be, partner, whatever the case may be. People will always remember how you made them feel. They may not remember what you said, they may not always remember what you did, but they will always remember how you made them feel. And if you want to make sure that that's a positive experience, take the time to understand that person. And there's a couple of things to remember around this. First thing is, what are their goals and their objectives and their motivators? We all have, our KPIs that we have to deliver. We all have the things that we're blocked on. Find out what those things are, because ideally you can help the person achieve those. Secondly, understand how the person likes to work and communicate. And this is really, really important because you want to make people feel comfortable and you want them to be able to be at their best when they're interacting with you. And there's lots of different personality types, lots of different communication styles, but ultimately you can distill it down to a small handful, which is, some people are quite decisive. They're quite happy to make decisions, and what they want to be presented with is, here are 2 or 3 options, here are the pros and cons of each, make a decision, and they're quite happy to do that. Other people like thinking and absorbing and taking time to consider all of the detail behind what you're proposing. So in that case, give them that time. Don't put them on the spot. Don't force them to have to make a decision without being able to absorb and consider all the impacts and ask all the questions. And it seems like such a simple thing, but even when you're interacting with people, sometimes people really want to talk to you and they're happy to give you the time. And sometimes they ignore all your emails and they don't take your calls. And generally that is because you could change the way that you're communicating with the individual to make sure that they're able to operate how they like to operate. And ideally, you can remove yourself from the equation if you're focusing on helping a stakeholder or a customer solve a problem so that you can adapt to how they like to work. So that's the first thing, really, really understanding the person.
Okay, and you probably get all these questions all the time, but what if you're in a technical role and you don't have customers per se? Does this still apply within that kind of role?
Absolutely. You still have your stakeholders. You might have, your delivery manager. You might have a different team that you have to collaborate with. You might have lots of stakeholders that you work with, and you still have to reach a consensus and reach an overall outcome to whatever the problem is that's being solved. And you need to bring people along with you to get there. So understanding what the motivators and drivers and styles for each individual are will always help you approach it in a way to get the best possible outcome. So it absolutely applies to any stakeholder that you are dealing with.
Yeah, and soft skills are super important, right? In even any technical role. So yeah, totally agree with that.
Yeah. So I guess a key thing that I'd like to highlight is, especially in the tech space, we have a lot of the answers to a lot of the problems, and we've heard a lot of the problems many times before. And when we are talking to someone, you know, we're able to just quickly go, oh, yep, you've said 2 words. I already know the problem that you're going to tell me about, and I actually know how to fix it. We should try not to do that, even though that is absolutely a strong instinct to do. And, we need to listen to understand, not just listen to respond. And the reason for that is, if you are listening to respond, you're actually not listening, because the customer or the stakeholder or the colleague might start saying something. And because you think it's something that you know and you've heard before, your mind is going a million miles an hour, actually going, yep, I know how to solve this. And you're solutioning in your head and you're getting ready to say, this is how I can solve your problem. While you're doing all that, this person is still talking and you're actually no longer hearing what they're saying because you're distracted by your own thought process of problem solving. And that's where we miss key details that might in fact change the solution, because yes, we've heard all the same problems and the solutions are typically similar, but each environment or scenario has different factors to consider and might have a broader picture or impact. And if we just give the standard solution that we know to work, we might miss a lot of things. So really, listening. And I'll give you an example of this. If someone said to you, 1 + 1 = 3, most people's reaction would be, actually, no, it's 2. That's a normal reaction, right? What we should be saying is, why do you think it's 3? Because either they know something that we don't, or we have more context that they're not aware of. Either way, you're not going to get to the best outcome if you can't understand the why behind why that person believes that. And so, just an example of not jumping to, what the answer is, but actually, why is this? Or, what more information do we have to be able to understand the whole picture before we make a recommendation on the best approach?
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know as solutions architects and technical folk, we tend to jump into solution mode, and I'm guilty as charged. I do jump to conclusions. If anyone's watched Office Space, there's a thing called jump to conclusions, but anyway, won't go there. Yeah, so there's so many great bits of information that we can use as both technical professionals and those working in that space. Yeah, is there any other words of wisdom that you'd like to impart us in terms of earning trust, and what's the best way to sort of define who likes certain ways of communication? Do you make a chart for every persona or person? What's the best way to get started?
I mean, there are resources out there that tell you typical communication and work styles and, how to best engage with them. But sometimes just ask people. So that there's two ways, one is observe them. So, see how they ask questions, see what kind of information they ask for, just observe how they interact. And that will already give you a really good idea of how they like to think. Maybe they are, they might say, let me think about it before I answer you, or, give me a few minutes to absorb what you've said. That already gives you quite an insight into how they like to work. But sometimes you can just ask, and especially if you're working with teams, sometimes you have really good relationships with with your customers, and you can actually just say, how would you prefer me to give you information, or how do you want me to approach you with decisions or options. Most people will be quite happy to say, oh, I like to review all the details and think about it and come back with questions, or I'm quite happy to wing it, is also a common one, which is, just bring me some data points, and, if I trust you and I know that you've thought about all the things you need to think about, I'm just going to make a decision on the spot. So, don't be afraid to ask these questions. Everyone's a human just like we are. Sit down with them, have a video call, and just, have a conversation. And I should say that's not always practical. Sometimes you have a new customer you're just meeting, you can't sort of go, oh, no, nice to meet you. How do you like to work? But that's when you start observing them. And, that's part of building trust is learning these things. And, earning trust is not an overnight thing. It's repeated and consistent behaviors. And, that's how you learn how your stakeholders like to interact.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
I
May,
think,
you have something to
yeah.
say?
No, I think that's a really good point in terms of earning trust. And Nat, you really pointed out like listening, like actually listening in, not like Mai said, to respond to questions, because sometimes in the space of a technology, there are so many things happening, and we don't know everything, right? So rather than trying to find the answer or the solution for the customer, sometimes we have to take a step back and really to lean in and understand why they raise those questions, or why they ask those questions, and what's the context behind it. And especially when there's a complex problem, you want to understand and really why those triggers them, those questions. So I think like really listening in and having those contexts, rather than just trying to answer those questions, I think that's really really important. And going back to what you said, Nat, because we're human, so like we work with humans, even though the technology is the main part of it, but you know it's human to human, and we just trying to help the customer. We're trying to help them grow the business. So it's really important to have that human interaction, the empathy, and really to understand the situation and why it happens. So I think that's a really good takeaway. Like even like listening in what you're saying, Nat, I think that's really valuable. Sometimes in the space of a technology, we're just trying to catch up everything, and we're just trying to do, as much as we can, but we're all humans at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, maybe I'll add to that. You said it quite nicely. Ask the question behind the question. So why are they asking the question in the first place? Because there's always more to unpack. And, secondly, we sometimes get caught up in, we know so much about technology, we're super smart, we know all the things. Ultimately, it's about solving the problems. And, it's not actually about us. It's about what's the problem and what's the outcome that we're trying to get to. And that will also help you not, react poorly, because sometimes you might propose something and the person will say, that's not at all what I want. You completely missed what I said. And it would be easy to take that personally and, kind of go, oh, I failed as a human. But if you can kind of remove yourself and go, well, maybe I didn't understand the problem well enough. Maybe I didn't have enough information, or maybe I didn't, check what I was understanding from this person. You can kind of remove the emotion a little bit, and you can keep objective and keep focused on the outcome and the problem you're trying to solve, rather than making it about, yourself and your skill set, which, even though impressive in most cases, it's not directly relevant to, the person trying to just solve their problem or meet their goal, or deliver what they need to deliver.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Just, I have done similar mistakes in my early careers. So I can say from my experience, sometimes we just, trying to find the solutions, and when somebody rejected the solutions that I proposed, and then I could just like, oh, why did I not know that? Like, why did that happen to me? What was the it's just those experience. But when you look back and then you learn from the mistake, but it is more about understanding where they come from, and finding the right solutions, but also having that, a communication with the peers or the stakeholders to understand what is actually their issues or their problems that they're trying to solve.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you're talking about communication styles. What about personality types, and whether that person's more of an introvert or extrovert? Do you have different ways of handling those different types of personalities and different communication styles?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of sort of profiling tools out there in the market. There's DISC, there's Baker Institute, there's quite a variety. But it does distill to kind of four key types, and they're named slightly differently, but they kind of mean the same thing. But some people are doers, and they get really frustrated when things aren't just happening, and they can't get momentum, and they're not in control of the outcome. And so, if you're dealing with that type of communication style, making sure that you are, always well prepared, keeping them informed, making sure that, they have the right data to make the right decisions, and never surprising them. In fact, never surprise any stakeholder. That's never a good thing. So that's one of the types. And you then have a talker, and the talkers are people who, they love people, they're interested in people, they want to know about your cat and your dog and your child, and where you're going on the weekend. And they're very, enthusiastic and positive, and they're very happy to commit to lots of things, which is great. And those are the people you want to kind of summarize what was agreed, so that it's really clear for everyone, and you can make sure that what needs to be delivered is delivered. And then you have people who are more a thinker style of individual, and those are the people where, prepare them with information. Don't put them in a meeting and just ask them to comment on something without warning. Usually they'll have a really well thought out, very measured, in-depth response, but give them that space to go and think about it and absorb what you're saying. So maybe give them a bit more time to work with what you're giving them. And then there's a fourth one, which is called the guard. And, these are people who don't love change. I mean, lots of people don't love change, but especially so when you are talking about changing technology stack or changing huge architectures, really explaining why, and again giving that detail and giving that time to absorb. So why are we doing this? Why does it matter? The so what question. Why should I care? And take them on that journey of where we are today and where we want to get to, and what their role is in that, and how we want them to be involved. And then again, give them time to think about it, and then they might come back with questions, and again they'll have very measured and well thought out questions. So it's quite simple when you think about it. It's just tweaking how much detail and how much space you give people to absorb, but it makes all the difference, because you don't want to make people that uncomfortable that now you're annoying them, and therefore they're not working with you to get to the outcome, and it's just not a great situation. Does that kind of answer what you were asking?
I'm very
Yeah.
impressed that you just come on. It's like those 4 categories, and I can see myself. I think I'm a thinker. I need to have. I need to research. I'm a bit of a slow reader as well, so I need to research. I need to absorb the information, and I know that I can't wing it. That kind of person, because some people are very good at it, and I'm not. I need to study, and I take my time to think about it and come up with like what we could do, and or even I have to comment on some of the architecture that I work with the customer. I need some time to think about it ahead of the meetings, because like I can't wing it. But I'm very impressed that you just okay, these are the 4 categories and these are the people. And I think the way of working with those people and understanding what style they are is really helps to get the outcome, I think, in my opinion. You work with this kind of if you understand this type of person and the type of working that they do, and help them prepare in advance, help you to get where you want to be. So I think that's a really great takeaway again. And
yeah, I mean, and the reason I can wing it, I'm a doer largely, and everyone has bits of everything, right? But you generally have sort of a dominant style. But the one thing I wanted to add is what you do is just as important as how you do it, and make it easy for people to say yes to you. And the way you do that is really understanding them and understanding what they're trying to achieve.
yeah, absolutely. What about you, Mai? What sort of categories do you think you are?
Yeah, like in the Myers-Briggs, I'm a INTJ, so I'm introverted quite heavily. So I get tired with human interaction. So I have my limits.
True.
There's a threshold of like, okay, I can't do this anymore.
Drained.
So recharge my battery. Yeah, so social outings are, very difficult for me. Yeah, but aside from that, yeah, the INTJ personality is called the architect. So I'm like, oh, that kind of fits as a solutions architect. So yeah, but somehow in the DISC test, I'm a doer, or dominant or whatever that was. So mixture of everything, basically.
Yeah. And it changes.
But I feel like you could be a bit of a guard as well, Mai, because you're very, you're very measured. You get all the information. You ask really good questions. Not to do a live profile, but that would fit quite well.
Yeah, it's interesting. So it's a Nat, you're a doer. Yeah, what are some pros and cons around the doer personality?
So I'll start with the cons. We can be perceived as quite blunt, sometimes arrogant, sometimes just kind of focused on business and outcome, and not considering people. So those are the cons, and I'm very conscious that I try not to come across that way, because I actually really do care about people. Some of the pros are, quite happy to make a quick decision if the person has presented good information. I can understand the pros and the cons. I can understand their thought process. I'm happy to make the call. And I think maybe the biggest advantage is momentum. Patience is not a thing. So just like pushing for outcomes. Really focused on results. But so my focus areas that I always am very mindful of is making sure that the people on the journey with me feel valued and don't feel like I'm just in it for the result and not caring about the person.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, being self-conscious of some of the things that you can improve within your own personality and communication style, that's amazing. I think we should all be doing some of that, including myself. Yeah,
self-awareness is it's interesting because it's really hard, but at the same time, if you can be vulnerable and be aware of your blind spots, and that's why I love feedback, because I don't know what I don't know, and how people perceive you. You need to know, and if it's not making people feel comfortable and you're not creating a safe space for people to be their best, then you should do something about that.
absolutely. May, do you have more questions for Nat?
No, I think we covered pretty much, but I just want to call out, anyone who is watching, and if you have any questions for Nat, if you want to know more about how do you earn trust day to day working with your peers and your stakeholders, please drop in the chat. But I guess we kind of getting close to our show time, so but yeah.
Yeah, so Nat, do you want to wrap up with some of the takeaways for today?
Yes. So I'd like to leave you with three key takeaways. The first one is remember to listen to understand, not to respond. The second one is remember that it's not about you, it's about the outcome. And the last one, and perhaps the most important, is do what you say you're going to do consistently. And if you follow those three things, I think you'd be well on your way to earning trust in all of your relationships and interactions.
That's amazing.
Awesome. All right, May, do you want to wrap up?
Yeah, that's amazing, Nat. But I just want to say thank you for joining us on a live stream. And this month is really special. This is the last month of our show for 2023. And Nat, we're doing something different because like usually we do a tech show because our show is to showcase women in technology. But this one is super special, close to my heart. And I learned so much today. So I just want to say thank you, Nat, for joining us on the show. And all the viewers out there, today is our last show for 2023, but we're going to come back on next year, 2024, with more shows, more exciting things. And we're going to kick it off next year as well as we usually do for 2023. So make sure you stay tuned. Check us out on the LinkedIn She Builds Tech Skill community page. Follow us on the LinkedIn as well. If you have any questions, send us a message. If there's anything you want to see for 2024, let us know. And I just want to say, thank you for amazing host for this whole year, staying with us. And and it has been a great pleasure. And I hope we can do more of these shows. But thank you to the community for joining us throughout the whole year, and hopefully we can grow this community for 2024 as well.
Awesome. Thank
Thanks
you,
so
everyone.
much for having me.
Thank you.